one of the early things I did that I didn't know if it would really pay off at all was that there was a vlogger in my niche that I noticed was fundraising. She had a project and she needed to basically cover some expenses to be able to do it. So that was the point where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to reach out to her. I have barely a site at all, but I'm going to just see if she would write for me if I donated towards this cause that she wants to support. And she said yes immediately. Like, I felt like I had just been contacted by, like, I don't know, like some kind of rock stars. Like, I was like so butterfly about it that this vlogger that I've been watching, like, she said yes, she's just gonna write for my site. Just really very cute. And so I brought her on for 10 articles, like right up front, because it was good for her, it was good for me, and it gave me a real boost because people that followed her would go to her articles, and it really showed Google, you know, in those first like 2 months that there were people actively searching for the name of my site, for her content. So that was huge. And I can now use her as basically an example of someone that I've worked with. So hands down, love that, would do that again. So that was the very first thing that I did. I also created, along the same lines, basically a media guide for bloggers in my niche. So I spend way too much time on YouTube, not all of it watching affiliate content, although obviously I do that too. So I pulled out probably 10 or 12 of the people that I watched the most, and I created a media guide as a resource saying, here are the people you should be watching. Every person got their own dedicated page, my top 5 videos for them, like all the key players. So it was a decent amount of work to do that, but it also brought in, I think, like 6,000 page views in the first year, which for a new site is good. And I will take that. And again, it's just people that now that I'm going to focus on outreach, those are the people that I can easily go back to. And it's a bit of a warm intro, right? To say, hey, I've been following you. Here's the proof of that, right? That I talk about what you're doing and I love what you're doing. So let's partner on XYZ. So those are 2 ways that, you know, were not things that I necessarily heard about people doing, but in my specific niche, blogging is big. And so I wanted to take advantage of that.
If you highlighted like a perfect example where you landed that first vlogger, and now you could say, hey, I worked with this person. They could see that very clearly. They could go check it out. And then they realize, okay, like you're doing interesting things. And by the way, I was impressed when you did this by like in the very beginning, but it's like you didn't have much content on your site.
Nope.
There was no track record. It was like a couple months old max, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people
10 articles on it.
Yes. When I launched, I know it's a different space, but I launched Niche Site Project, and I did the same thing. I had maybe 4 articles, and internet marketing is pretty competitive because there's a bunch of marketers doing it, but I was able to network in a similar way, like talking with people that maybe shouldn't like care who I am or anything like that. And they were like, okay, like we'll see how it goes. And if you get 1 or 2 of those, then other people with a social proof are more likely to work with you. So you put yourself out there, it worked out. Now a year later, you're able to like land other bigger fish or whatever. So
right.
Okay.
And it was something where I could feel good about it too, because I wasn't just asking for something, right? I was reaching out because this person had a need and something that they wanted to be doing, and I could also help with that. So that it felt like a really good initial transaction. So
similarly, and I just remembered I landed an interview with actually a few at this point, a much bigger vlogger, because I knew that they were releasing a book. They were launching a book, and I was like, oh, they'll talk to anyone who asks, and not that many. It was the wrong space. Yep. Like people didn't care, but I made a contact and ended up, I actually met one of the VAs that I worked with for a long time. This is going way tangent here. So I met a VA who ended up working with me for years, who actually helped my wife get a job, and that's why we moved. So like through that, I forgot that that's how it was all tied together. But it was like a friend of a friend, and then her mom, and then blah blah blah. So then we moved.
I mean, I think you have to make it personal, right? Because everyone's running an internet business, anyone that you're going to talk to here, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it gets really, I think it gets lonely for people, right? That are even putting out a lot of content, like vloggers, podcasters. Like, is anyone listening? Is anyone watching? Like, are they just in it for the free content from me? And so to have someone reach out and be like, I see this is what you're doing in your life, right? I would like to help support you in that. That's a nice email to receive, right? And it's a nice one to be able to send. So the more that you kind of watch people in your space that you do want to connect with and genuinely reach out when they have things going on, that's nice for everybody.